First of all, I just want to thank everyone that's gone before me. Lovely presentation so far. I was just amazed at the TikTok. I thought that was fantastic. I'd really like to see that implemented where we are. So yeah, I'm Matt, program manager for maths based at Printworks campus of Leeds City College. So I've been involved with CfEM since the start of the project. I'm really proud of that. This year, it's been my first as an action research lead, which I've really enjoyed. And so the presentation today focuses on my lead project for this year. So engagement level in maths, as we all know, is one of the biggest challenges we face within the FE sector. From our point of view, learners arrive at college demotivated in maths. They have real previous negative experiences of the subject. We face poor engagement, motivation to learn, and unfortunately, this case, it comes with poor attendance. So nothing new. I can hear you shouting out. I've been with Leeds City College for over 16 years, and you know, in my time, we need these sessions to be enjoyable for our students, and then we're in with a chance then of increased student engagement and attendance. And then, of course, we've got chance for further progression and achievement. So our project aimed to address the need based around raising our learners' motivation and engagement levels. So we wanted to use a gamified approach to classroom delivery within FE Maths. Now, gamification isn't a new concept. It was said to be coined in 2003 by Nick Pelling. He was a computer programmer and inventor. So by 2010, this concept really began to take off within various industries. And now it's widely used within education. So mainly in America, this is the case. And after reading around this concept, I wanted to see how games could help with motivation. Now, one of the things that I sort of saw and noticed was my son plays a lot of games. I'm sure plenty of you there have got children that play games. And I noticed how he was playing Fortnite, for instance, and he was doing really well on a level. He would get so far, and then he would be stuck, and he'd keep trying. And what I noticed there was that freedom to fail within that level. And eventually he would get there and get on to the next level. And what I noticed there was that progression. And I then sort of linked that with maths and thought, okay, so we can link progression and freedom to fail with games and maths. So I just sat there watching him, and I thought, following this sort of light bulb moment, if you like, I wondered how it would play out in our maths classrooms. So this idea of levels and gaining points. So I sort of wrote a rationale, and it went from there. So at Leeds City College, we chose to work with two of our network partners, Keighley College and Calderdale College. They have smaller cohorts of learners to us, and they're sort of, but their maths policy and attainment figures are in line with ours. So that's why we thought it would be good to work with these. So we had 4 teachers chosen, and they each had 2 experimental groups. So we had 2 teachers from Printworks and 1 each from Keighley and Calderdale. And it is wonderful to see that we've got all of these people present today. So any questions you have, please fire these into the chat. So there was around 82 learners that formed our total data set. So we narrowed our focus down into sort of 4 main objectives. So analysing the effectiveness of using our gamified classroom strategy with a regard to improvement of learner motivation and engagement. Designing and implementing the use of a points-based reward system to capture learner engagement. So this was within our 8 maths classrooms. Increasing the engagement levels with online learning platforms in maths, and we've heard some of that earlier today. Analysing whether the use of a reward-based approach adds value to the learning of maths and has an impact on learner engagement and overall enjoyment of maths. So the project centred around learners gaining points to move up levels during 3 separate research cycles. So points were distributed throughout each of the cycles in the 4 key areas here. So whether it was attending the lesson on time, good behaviour for the duration of the session, but most importantly was providing peer support to each other. So each cycle then had extra elements, as you can see underneath. So for cycle 1, for example, we included the first mock exam and so attendance, and then acting on the feedback, which was so important. As you know, we've heard already today, tags and CAGs were the norm, but we're back now and students were needing to go back into that exam room. So we really needed to see good attendance in the mocks so we could clearly see gaps and to help them. So to build on cycle 1, we decided to include the use of a chosen online system for homework. So each tutor would be using a different system for this. After cycle 2 and obviously talking to the teachers, we decided that it would be good to replicate cycle 3 with that of the first cycle. You know, this was because the classroom mock exam points had more significance than the online homework. So this slide here shows an example of the tally charts that we had. So we produced these, and these were inserted into the front cover of the learner exercise books. So you can see there in cycle 1 on the left, you can see the different ways that students could gain points. So attending the lesson, good behaviour, helping others, attendance to the mock, acting on your feedback, and then completing and returning an additional paper, which was really good to see. If you could look on cycle 3, learner there in group 2A was clearly focused on improvement, which is so good to see. So our project used a mixed method approach with quantitative and qualitative data across the 3 cycles. So initially we had a verbal short discussion, which was undertaken by each teacher in class with their group, and we asked them about their thoughts on gaming in general, and then from this we could formulate our points tables, and this was also used to introduce the gamification concept to the students. So following this discussion, teachers collated the student responses into an initial reflection, which we then used for data collection. An initial online survey, an endpoint survey for students, was used. So this survey was key for us in finding out learners' motivation and engagement levels towards GCSE maths. 4 individual transcribed interviews were conducted at the end of cycle 2. So these were with the teachers, and they were designed to ascertain the impact of the projects at that point. 13 face-to-face interviews with students were also transcribed. And then finally, teacher reflections at the end of each cycle were used to see which aspects of the project had worked and what we might recommend expanding for future research. So from the project, we found these 3 key findings. So the points-based system, which in effect is our gamification strategy, was well received by learners. We did see an increased motivation and engagement level. And really, really importantly, there was an increased evidence of peer support. Okay, so what have we got to back this up? So The points-based system clearly generated interest amongst our learners. The competition element here shown on the chart on the left was the most popular reason why students enjoyed taking part of the project. And there was also a proportion of students who acknowledged that it linked to their overall achievement and progression. So teachers also used the leaderboard in class. So the 3 comments back the stats up and show that the element of wanting to improve. So learner comments such as the leaderboard is good, I'd want to be up there and in the top 5, clearly show that competitive streak in our learners. And, you know, when I thought about that, I thought, yeah, because that's linked to gaming. That was the whole idea. So when asked about displaying the leaderboard, student C here was happy for it to display it on a wall or even online. So the key theme of the project for us was to gauge motivation and engagement. The feedback received showed us an increased level of engagement. Student B here on the left clearly enjoyed the project. Students A and C again confirmed that competitive streak that we want to see. And the chart on the right is really pleasing in that students clearly understood that correlation between motivation and making progress. Interestingly here, less emphasis is placed on the reward element, which shows that in a difficult year, our learners wanted to do well and act on their mock feedback. During the year in our literature review research element, we read that points were a motivating element of the gamification process due to it providing immediate feedback to learners. And that links again to my son playing games. You know, he is getting immediate feedback when he is trying his best to get up to that next level, whether it's in FIFA, whether it's in Fortnite. He's getting feedback. He can see, okay, what am I doing wrong? So that's what we want to see in maths. That's nice that they can have that immediate feedback to get better. So our project found there was no real reports of students being demotivated by the process. TODA in 2018 claimed it could result in undesirable behaviours and loss of performance. Well, no, as if you read Lebog in 2013, students demonstrated an increase in effort inside the classroom. So peer support, so this is what we want to see, not just in maths though. So our learners offering their support to each other. So our initial survey in late October, early November showed now only 36% of learners frequently or always offered peer support. However, our teacher reflections after the final cycle clearly suggest a change of mindset. You know, lovely comments here, promoting peer support, working collaboratively to support each other, and students see actively asking to help another student. So that's the dream right there. So what conclusions have we drawn? The obvious impact the project has had is key for us, as our title suggests. We wanted to see an enhancement of engagement, both inside and outside of the classroom. The findings I've shared indicate an increase in motivation and engagement, but even more pleasing for me, and as I go back to the beginning, is that enjoyable aspect. We want to see our learners enjoying maths. So if I think back 12 months to when I was deciding on a theme, I decided on something that does not just solely focus on achievement. So by implementing gamification, I wanted to see an increase in learners also enjoying their math sessions and not just improving, although we want both. So if we take the impact inside of the classroom, initial survey data highlighted that offering peer support was not commonplace in sessions. However, following the completion of the cycles, learner responses suggested that collaborative working had increased because of our strategy and had become a regular feature of their sessions. So the The pandemic has provided obvious challenges. We just didn't know how learners would react this year, but mock exams, as you all agree, I'm sure would have been more important than ever. And across all departments, it's been pleasing to see at Leeds City College how seriously they were taken. Our project also highlighted this, and importantly found that students were also acting on their mock feedback in class. So this motivation was carried over into a really positive attendance in the recent summer exams. So the impact outside of the classroom, our evidence supported an increase in engagement within it, but only anecdotally for outside of the classroom. One teacher commented, on the whole, I'd say the majority are participated in the online homework, which I'm really pleased about. In comparison, completing online work outside of the classroom was the least popular response from students in how they obtain points, which suggested a limited impact of the process outside of the classroom. And that is something for us to ponder moving forward. So now we've had time to reflect on the project, what went well, not so well, what recommendations can we share with our CfEM family. So staff feedback suggested adopting the strategy at the beginning of the year or in the build up to exam periods could have had a greater impact for learners. So where a leaderboard was used, it was seen as beneficial, but this was not done with any great consistency across the groups to establish its overall impact. Gamification research suggests a leaderboard can aid in increasing motivation levels. So trialing this consistently would be worthwhile. Limited research had been conducted on the impact of awarding negative points. So we had mixed responses for students on how they felt about this potential approach. But this, I think, would be an interesting adaptation for future trials. 64% of students said they wanted the strategy adopted in their vocational sessions, and teachers felt that we were doing a disadvantage to those students who were not part of the trial. And it would be beneficial to adopt the strategy with an increased number of students than our 82. So therefore, trialing the strategy as a whole department approach would provide a much larger sample size to test this project. I want to really thank you for listening today. I hope you found it interesting and something you might like to try with your learners in your college. We've got a fantastic action research website, which will be added to the Padlet. So it includes our literature review, because there isn't too much out there for college sort of research. So I think I'll point you towards that. There's plenty of reading around there. So I'm presenting today as leader of the project. However, we have an army behind the scenes, and without them, it just wouldn't have been possible. So I'd like to thank the teachers who are online today, Sue and Fariba from Printworks, and Zara from Keighley, and Liz and Richie from Calderdale College. And also I'd like to thank Sarah, Mamta and Jess, who've been pivotal in this process. I'd like to thank them for their expertise, input and guidance and support. So as I say, we've got people online, so it's a great opportunity for you to ask any questions that you have for the project. Thank you very much.